This is Backstage Bay Area, your all-access pass to the local music scene. Now, here's your host, Steve Roby.
A blazing new alto voice is moving from apprentice to band leader with a debut that's turning heads. Sarah Hanahan toured with heavyweights, sharpened her sound on bandstands coast to coast, and she's bringing that fire to the Joe Henderson Lab this month. On today's show, we'll trace her path, discuss her lineage, spin 2 tracks from the debut album Among Giants, and preview her upcoming SFJAZZ shows. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to Backstage Bay Area.
Hey, Steve. How you doing? Thank you so much for having me.
I'm doing good. I understand you're in New York now?
Yes, in New York.
I see you have a busy schedule, so thanks for making the time for this interview.
Of course. I'm very happy to be here and excited to talk about what's coming to SF very soon.
All right. Well, let's start with your musical background. What drew you to the alto sax in the first place, and when did it click that this wasn't just an instrument for you?
Anyone who knows me knows my dad is a drummer and a great musician. He really got me hip to the music when I was a young kid. I remember for like a little period of time, he didn't have any cable. I don't know why. I'd have to ask him, but he didn't have any cables, so we only had a DVD player and like a VHS player, and which is great. This is early 2000s, and we would watch all these. He had like a good collection of DVDs, anywhere from like Looney Tunes collection. We had a lot of musicals like Hello Dolly, American in Paris, of course the Christmas classics, White Christmas, all that. He used to have DVDs, like 2 or 3 DVDs of Buddy Rich's big band playing live. You know, as a drummer, as he loves big band, you know, but as a drummer in particular, he loves the great Buddy Rich because he's one of the greatest drummers of all time. And I remember my dad showing me these videos, and at first I didn't really like them, but then they were just playing all the time. So eventually I got into them. And in those videos, I really liked the saxophone, you know, as a young kid, you know, 5 or 6 years old, I guess. I liked the way the saxophone looked, you know, how it was shiny. And also the saxophonists were always taking like the first solos and just, you know, bring the house down, you know. So when I was, I think 6 or 7, I asked my dad for a saxophone for Christmas. And he did the classic where we opened all the gifts and there was no saxophone. And I was like, oh man, that's a bummer. And then, but 10 minutes later, he's like, oh, I forgot something. And goes upstairs and he brought down my first saxophone. So,
wow.
Yeah, that's how I got into it. And from 3rd grade, I guess, you know, all the way till now, I've been playing alto in particular. And it wasn't really until maybe my sophomore year in high school where I really started getting very serious about it and about the, you know, about jazz in particular.
Sure.
And starting to study and think, oh, this is kind of what I want to do. And I just want to play. You know, and so it wasn't until I was about 15 years old that I really, really started getting very committed to it, you know.
You've spoken about honoring the lineage, especially bebop, when finding your own sound. When you sit down to practice or write, what does honoring the tradition look like in the day-to-day?
The tradition of this music is so vast and it's so, it's just beautiful, you know, starting from even people as early as, you know, Sidney Bechet, Louis Armstrong, of course, you know, all the way till now. And we have greats like Kenny Garrett, Abraham Burton, and Joshua Redman, you know, the greats that we are, Joe Farnsworth, the people who are living, you know, among us. But what's so beautiful about this music is that it's really been passed down, you know, from generation to generation, not by anything online or books or anything, but really by being up on the bandstand and learning right there, you know. Charlie Parker passed it to Miles Davis passed it to so many other people, John Coltrane, Kenny Garrett, you know. So like this whole lineage it's such a beautiful thing to think, wow, this in one way or another you're still being taught by, you know, Charlie Parker or Dizzy Gillespie or Louis Armstrong. You know, I know people, someone like Eddie Henderson, who I love to be around and hang with him. His first trumpet lesson was with Louis Armstrong, you know. And so it's just amazing to me. I love history, and in particular, the history of this music. It's really this country's history, you know, for everywhere from the good and the bad. And to me, as a musician, it's very important to know the history and honor it. And so when you're just talking about a daily practice or anything like that, I'm still always going back to Bird and to Dizzy Gillespie, and even before to Louis Armstrong, Sidney Bechet, Coleman Hawking, anywhere from Don Byas, all these Johnny Hodges, Duke Ellington, all these greats, and still checking out their music because what they produced in their lifetime is incredible and genius. And so to me, still going and studying that music every day is really what keeps me moving.
It's like going to school every day, huh?
Exactly. No, it's amazing. And especially with all the resources that we have now in 2025.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable. You can find anything online, and it's such a gift to be able to, check anything out at your fingertips. It's amazing.
You've talked about the physical and mental stamina of playing, pushing through to reach bigger ideas. How do you train for that, and how does it show up on the bandstand?
Yeah, I mean, just years of, playing every day. And, I think it's funny. Sometimes people ask me, like, what do you do to warm up or things like that? It's like, I'm always kind of warm. I'm always playing, I'm always thinking about music mentally, but I'm always on my horn, whether it's gigs or in the daytime practicing. I do have to warm up if I take a vacation or something like that. But, as musicians, we live this thing. I do anyway.
Sure, yeah.
And so I'm always, thinking about playing. And in terms of stamina, I think, especially I've been blessed to play with the great Joe Farnsworth for the last 3 years. And my stamina has really grown being with him because we play fast and we play long and things like that. And it's like, I'm not sure if I would have done that if I wasn't with him, but he was passing it down to me from people like George Coleman and people like Harold Mayburn, Benny Golson, people that he got to spend time with, Junior Cook.
Wow.
So even Johnny Griffin, he played long. And so being with Joe, I really learned how to have endurance, throughout the gig and throughout the week or however long we're playing throughout the month. It's just something you build as you keep going. It's like being a marathon runner or something, you build it over time, but it's important that you run every day, so for me, it's important. I get on the horn every day and make sure I'm keeping up.
Right. You got to keep those muscles moving. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. You'll lose them,
Exactly. Well, let's transition to your debut album, Among Giants. It arrives with a strong sense of purpose, title, repertoire, and an arc that feels both classic and personal. What was the spark for this record, and how did you shape it so the whole thing flows?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I always thought about doing my first record, as a leader, I always thought about people's records I really loved. Not only just their records, but their first records in particular. Someone like who I mentioned earlier, Kenny Garrett, who's a real hero and inspiration of mine. His first record was with his, heroes, people like Woody Shaw and Mulgrew Miller, and that concept always really stood out to me. And it's kind of, the concept is not only to have just these great legendary players that I've spent a lot of time around, but also it's showing that, these players are kind of giving you a cosign, as a young up and coming player.
Sure.
And that was always something that was important to me, these great musicians I've got to spend time around, them saying publicly and recording with you that like they believe in you and that they believe in what you're doing is something I'm really grateful for and something that I really cherished making my first record. And so that was kind of the concept for the record is to have, some of the greatest musicians on it that I could think of and people I've spent time around, which includes, of course, the great Nat Reeves on bass, who I spent many years with at the University of Hartford. And he really taught me how to play. Like we were speaking earlier, he taught me how to play on the bandstand, bringing me up on gigs I was not ready to be on. And, he would bring me up on gigs, people like Eddie Henderson or people like Steve Davis.
Yeah.
People like even David Hazeltine. I think the first time I played with Joe Farnsworth was with Nat. And so it would be, people around me who were on such a different level, but that just pushed me and made me, grind harder and make me go after it even harder, because I had something to prove. So Nat has been a huge inspiration for me. And he's, of course, played with some of my favorite saxophonists of all time, the great Jackie McLean, the great Pharoah Sanders. He even played with the great Sonny Stitt. He's played with George Coleman, Eric Alexander, and Kenny Garrett for many years. And so Nat has always been a huge inspiration for me.
All right.
And then, of course, we had to get the great Mark Carey, who I love so much. He plays the piano like how no one's playing the piano anymore. He really knows how to comp. And he played with the great Betty Carter and Abby Lincoln, so he really knows how to listen, being with vocalists. And I love playing with him because he makes me stop and listen. As sometimes as a saxophone player, you could get so much into playing all this stuff that but when I play with Mark, he's like, he grounds me, and he just plays with so much soul and passion.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the bomb of the record is the great Jeff Tane Watts, who I've admired for so many years. And he is just such a beautiful guy inside and out. He's just an amazing person. And to have him on the record, really, it meant a lot to me as someone, I look at and think like, wow, like, he's special, and so that was kind of the concept for the record. And making it flow was all about just putting the right songs next to each other and having a real concept, for the album. My concept was kind of just to honor the tradition, like we're talking about, honor the lineage, but also put my spin on things and make sure that I have, put my touch on it and my compositions and things like that. So it was to mix the old and the new, and I love both. So that was just a bit about the thought process of my album.
It works quite well, and I love the album. In fact, let's play a track from it. We're going to play Resonance. It's from Among Giants, and it's out now. Let's give it a listen. This is Renaissance on Backstage Bay Area. was Resonance from Among Giants by saxophonist Sarah Hanahan, and it's out now. This is Backstage Bay Area, and I'm Steve Roby. On Renaissance, your tone is assertive but singing, and the band responds in waves. What were you exploring in this tune emotionally and structurally, and how do you want the listener to feel it in their bodies?
I want everyone listening to just enjoy what we created in that moment. When I wrote this song, it was kind of, inspired by, of course, the great John Coltrane. What I was trying to accomplish in the song is just creating an arc, of from start to finish. And I think we did that quite well. Yeah. And I really enjoyed the way it came out. And basically, I just wanted to play with a lot of love and play with a lot of, fire.
Yeah.
And we really had a lot of nice moments together as a band on that track. So that track, I love that track.
All right. You also take on Stardust, a standard with deep history. What led you to put your stamp on it, and how did you balance respecting the song's lineage with saying something new?
Choosing to do Stardust was it was an easy choice, but also a hard choice because, like you're saying, that's a warhorse of a ballad, in American songbook history. My teacher, Abraham Burton, who also is the producer on Among Giants, when I was in school at the Jackie McLean Institute in Hartford, he challenged me to learn this song. He was like, don't learn it by, Sonny Stitt or Cannonball Adderley. He said, learn it through Nat King Cole. And I was like, really? He was like, yeah. He was like, you got to learn the lyrics to the song, and you have to learn how a lyricist would phrase the song, And so I actually learned it through Nat King Cole. I learned the lyrics and I learned the chords. Even Nat King Cole, he sings it in a different key than it's almost the normal key. I think he sings it in G flat, but the most common key would be D flat for the key. So I had to learn it and then transcribe it to another key. But transpose. It helped me so much to learn the song because I'm learning the lyrics, and I'm learning how it goes. So when Abraham challenged me to do that, it really changed my perspective on learning ballads.
Wow.
You have to know the lyrics, and all the greats would say that as well.
Yeah.
About learning the lyrics to, especially a ballad, because it's slow. You have to know how to phrase it in a proper way, as if you're telling the story, as if Frank Sinatra would sing it, or as if Sarah Vaughan would sing it, as if, of course, Nat King Cole would sing it, or Ella Fitzgerald, or Nina Simone. So I wanted to be able to play a ballad like a vocalist and really be able to portray the meaning of the song. And so Stardust is one of my all-time favorite songs done by everybody. And I wanted to take on that challenge. So
right. Here's Sarah Hanahan with Stardust from her album Among Giants. We'll be right back. You just heard Stardust from Among Giants by Sarah Hanahan. This is Backstage Bay Area, and I'm Steve Roby. Speaking of live energy, coming to the Joe Henderson Lab at SFJAZZ, and let's talk about those shows. Who's in the quartet for these SFJAZZ shows, and what do they bring out of your music in a live setting?
Yeah, I'm so excited to be coming out to the Bay. I love San Francisco. It's one of my favorite places to play, and
All right.
I just love the people there, so I'm very excited. I have a great quartet with me. It's going to feature the great drummer Kyle Poole, who recently moved out to California. And so I figured, it's perfect time to play with Kyle Poole. A lot of people know him from playing with Emmett Cohen, also Cecile McLaurin-Salvant. But I just love Kyle's playing, and we come from the same place, the tradition of the music. So I'm really excited to play with him. He plays with a lot of fire. I'll be bringing my bassist from New York, and we actually knew each other in Hartford, Connecticut. He's born and raised in Rockyville, Connecticut, and he's an unbelievable bassist. He really will make you stop and think like, wow, like how is he playing the bass like that? He is incredible, and he always adds a lot to the bandstand. That's the great Matt Dwanzik on the bass. So that's like my hometown, my guy, and so he'll be coming out to hold it down on the bass fiddle, and on the piano we have a young lion from. He lives in LA, and he was studying with Herbie Hancock at the Herbie Hancock Institute.
Nice.
And I really like his playing. We've played a few times before, but he just plays with a lot of fire. He's young and he's hungry, and I'm really excited to play with him. That's the great Miles Lennox on the piano.
All right. So across the two sets that you're performing, what can Bay Area listeners look forward to? Is there going to be some new material, surprises that might change from the early to the late show?
Yes, definitely. I've been actually recently writing some new music, and I'm very excited about my new music. And we've been playing it and working it out, and we're having a blast playing it. So you definitely will expect to hear some new music, also some music from the record Among Giants, of course. We'll play a couple songs off that, and also you'll be hearing some just great American songbook standards I love from people like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie and things like that. So a little bit of everything for everybody.
All right. So the Joe Henderson Lab is an intimate room. How does that scale affect your dynamics and conversation with the audience?
Yeah, of course. First, I love an intimate room. I love being able to connect with the crowd right up front. It's so much better for me as an artist to just see people right there and just talk to the people. It's harder for me in like a big festival or something like that. The crowd feels so far away. So I love an intimate room, and we're still going to play really hard and give it our all and play our hearts out. So
good.
It's going to be a great night.
All right. Well, let me remind our listeners, the Sarah Hanahan Quartet will be playing at the Joe Henderson Lab at the SFJAZZ Center on Saturday, September 20th. Showtimes are at 7 and 8:30 p.m. Tickets and more information can be found at sfjazz.org, and learn more about Sarah's music at her website, sarahhanahan.com. Sarah, I love your passion for music and music history. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you, Steve. This was a blast. Really looking forward to seeing everybody out in the Bay Area.
All right, this is Backstage Bay Area. We'll be right back.
Hey musicians, would you like to be a guest on Backstage Bay Area? Just email the host and let him know when you'll be playing in the Bay Area. The address is backstage.sfbay@gmail.com. Now, let's get back to the show.
For details on Sarah Hanahan's Joe Henderson Lab shows and links to the music, check the show notes. I'm Steve Roby, and this is Backstage Bay Area, your all-access pass to the music scene.